Christmas isn't a place for losers, my sister Amanda remarked, standing at the doorway with her arms crossed. The sharp December air nipped at my cheeks, but her words cut deeper than the cold. I stood there holding 2 large gift bags, one in each hand, filled with presents I had spent weeks carefully selecting for her children, for Mom and Dad, and even for her husband, Tom. For the first time in years, I was actually looking forward to the holidays. There was no frantic last-minute shopping, no rushing from store to store. Everything had been prepared. I was ready. Yet when Amanda's smug expression told me I wasn't wanted, I simply nodded. Fine, I replied calmly, turning away before she could see me clench my jaw. That night, I made a choice. If my mere presence was such a burden, my money would be too. That was when the real trouble started. Amanda's words echoed in my mind long after I walked away. No place for losers. I couldn't even remember how I made my way back down the steps. My boots crunched against the frozen driveway, and my breath came out in sharp bursts in the cold air. The gift bags felt inexplicably heavier now, as though they knew they no longer had a purpose. I sat in my car, the engine off, staring blankly at the dashboard. In my mind, I could still see Amanda standing at the door, that self-satisfied tilt of her head. Behind her, Mom's eyes flickered nervously, but she said nothing. Dad was somewhere in the background, pretending to be busy in the kitchen. Not a single person asked me to come inside. The thing was, I could have understood if I had actually done something wrong. But calling me a loser? That was a new low, and it was completely undeserved. I had always been generous to my sister and her family. For years, I'd been the one paying for school supplies, sports uniforms, and even that extravagant summer camp they loved to brag about on Facebook. I'd helped them through real emergencies, things that weren't just about poor budgeting, though I had covered those too. And now, I was being shut out at Christmas. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white before finally starting the car. I drove halfway down the street before realizing I had no answers. Why this year? Why now? 30 minutes later, the gift bags were still sitting on the passenger seat as I pulled into my driveway. I sat there for a long time, watching my breath fog up the windshield, until something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to just let it slide. I needed to hear Amanda's explanation, directly from her. I backed out and drove the 15 minutes back to my parents' house, parking in the same spot I had just left. This time, I left the presents in the car. I walked right up to the door and opened it without knocking. Mom and Dad were in the living room, speaking quietly to each other, while Amanda lounged on the couch, absorbed in her phone. What's going on? I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. Why am I not welcome at Christmas? What did I do? Amanda didn't even look up. You really don't get it, do you? She said, her voice dripping with condescension. You've been slacking off. The kids barely got anything from you this year. I stared at her, taken aback. Barely? I'd spent hundreds on them. I had more in my car than anyone else would be receiving. Finally, she glanced up at me, her eyes narrowing. Last year you did more. This year, it's like you don't care. It's embarrassing for us. Embarrassing for them. The heat rose in my chest, but I looked to Mom and Dad for support. Mom just shrugged awkwardly, and Dad avoided my gaze. That's when I realized, I wasn't just unwelcome this year. I was being judged. And in their eyes, I had already lost. I wish I could say Amanda's words didn't affect me that night, but they did. They burrowed in like splinters, resurfacing memories I'd been trying to forget. And here's the thing, she wasn't entirely wrong about one thing. In the past, I had done so much for them. When Amanda married Tom, their financial situation was already on shaky ground. Tom had left his job in search of something better, but that better never came. Amanda worked part-time at a boutique, barely managing to cover groceries, and by the time they sent out their wedding invitations, they were behind on rent. The first time I helped was 2 days before their eviction when Amanda called me, crying, not knowing where the kids would sleep. I transferred the money immediately, telling myself it was just temporary. Once Tom found a job and Amanda worked more hours, they'd be okay. But what started as temporary became permanent. When their car broke down, I covered the repair costs. When the twins needed laptops for school, I bought them. When Tom had an idea for a business and needed capital, I wrote the check, even though I had no idea what the business actually was. Every Christmas, I went all out, not just for the kids, but for Amanda, Tom, and even Mom and Dad. I loved seeing their faces light up. I told myself I was helping because family supports family. But eventually, the gratitude faded. My generosity became expected, and my help felt like an obligation. The few times I said I couldn't contribute, like when I was saving for my own down payment, Amanda made me feel like I was letting everyone down. One year, when Tom's hours were cut and they couldn't afford summer camp for the kids, Amanda said, "I guess they'll just sit at home all summer bored," implying that I was ruining their childhood, so I paid for the camp. Looking back, I see now that I had trained them to rely on me, not just for emergencies but for every small setback. And that's why this Christmas hurt so much. I had already given so much, and the one year I didn't overextend myself, I was punished for it. As I drove home after the confrontation, my hands gripping the steering wheel, I realized the truth. It wasn't about the gifts or Christmas, it was about control. For the first time in years, Amanda didn't have it. The morning after Christmas Eve was unusually quiet. There were no notifications on my phone, no Merry Christmas text from Mom, not even a passive-aggressive message from Amanda. It was eerily silent. I lay in bed for a while, letting the events from the previous night sink in. I had been publicly humiliated by my own sister, dismissed by my parents, and somehow made to feel like the villain for not spending enough on Amanda's kids. The worst part was that none of it surprised me anymore. By the time I made coffee, I had made up my mind. I was done. Done being the family's financial support. I didn't announce it. There were no dramatic texts or emails. I simply stopped. No more Venmo transfers for rent, no covering sports fees or school trips, and no more surprise gifts. If they wanted to see me as a burden, fine. Let them experience what life would be like without me paying for everything. Days passed, and Christmas came and went without a word from Amanda or my parents. New Year's Eve was the same. My phone sat on the coffee table, untouched, while the silence grew heavier than any insult Amanda had ever hurled at me. Part of me hoped, even if it was foolish, that at least my parents would reach out. I expected Mom to regret how things went, or for Dad to finally speak up for me. But they didn't. Instead, the silence spoke louder than any words. It told me they were fine without me, or at least they wanted me to believe they were. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was fine too, but the quiet still hurt. By mid-January, I realized something I hadn't expected. The silence wasn't just a punishment. It was a test. Amanda was waiting for me to break, to call her first and apologize for not doing enough. But I wasn't going to. If they wanted space, I would give it to them. And if Amanda thought she could shame me into being her personal ATM again, she was in for a rude awakening. One Tuesday evening in late January, I heard a pounding sound. At first, I thought it was a delivery. It was loud enough to be one. But it felt off. I was in the middle of preparing dinner, a pot of pasta simmering on the stove, when the knocking on the door started. It didn't stop, so I finally opened it. There stood Amanda, her cheeks flushed from the cold, coat half-zipped, with Tom standing behind her, his hands shoved into his pockets, avoiding my gaze. "We need to talk," Amanda said as she pushed past me, filling the hallway with the sharp scent of her perfume. I muttered a greeting under my breath, and closed the door behind her. Without wasting any time, she spoke up. "You've made your point, Chloe, but this is getting out of hand. The kids barely have what they need. Tom's been doing everything he can." I let out a short laugh, cutting her off. Everything he can? Last I heard, he was between jobs and working on something big. Tom bristled at that, but didn't speak. Amanda's voice grew colder. "This isn't about him. This is about you. You've always helped before, and now suddenly, you think you're too good for your own family." I crossed my arms. "No, I've decided I'm done being treated like a bank. There's a big difference." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you're punishing me, but you're really punishing the kids." The words hit hard, exactly as she'd intended, but I didn't let it show. "The kids are your responsibility. Tom's responsibility, not mine." Amanda glanced at Tom as though waiting for him to back her up. He shifted uncomfortably before muttering, We're just asking for a little help until things get better. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. And how many times have I heard that same line? Things never get better. They just get more expensive. Amanda's face reddened, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. Instead, she pointed at me, her finger trembling. You've changed. You used to care about this family. Now you're just selfish. That word stung like a slap. I leaned in slightly, making sure she heard me clearly. Selfish? You stood in Mom's doorway and called me a loser because I didn't spend enough on your kids. You think that's caring? You think that's family? Amanda's jaw clenched, but she stayed silent. Here's the truth, I said, my voice low. I'm done financing your life. If you want more, earn it. If you can't, figure it out. But don't come here expecting me to fix it for you. The silence stretched between us. Finally, Amanda spun around, yanking the door open with such force it rattled. Tom followed, not meeting my eyes. The door clicked shut behind them, and I knew it was over. Or so I thought. 2 days later, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I would have let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Hello, is this Chloe Harper? A calm, professional voice asked. Yes, who's calling? I replied. My name is Daniel Ross. I'm an attorney in Boston, and I represent a client with concerns about certain financial matters involving your family. Do you have a moment to discuss? My stomach tightened. Financial matters? What does that even mean? He paused. I can't go into detail over the phone, but it involves monetary contributions you've made to your sister Amanda and her husband Tom. Specifically, how those contributions were used. A cold sensation crept over me. Who's your client? I asked. He hesitated, just long enough to make my pulse quicken. Amanda's husband's financial activities are under review. My client believes you should be made aware. I almost hung up, almost told him to talk to Amanda directly, but something in his voice made me reconsider. Fine, I said. Text me the address. The next day, I sat across from Daniel Ross in a sleek office, the walls lined with dark bookshelves and framed degrees. He slid a folder toward me. My client is someone you know, he said. It's Amanda. I blinked in surprise. She hired you? I asked. She did, Daniel confirmed. She came to me with concerns about Tom's handling of the money you've given them over the years. She recently discovered evidence suggesting Tom has been diverting those funds into a separate account, one she didn't know about. I opened the folder, revealing bank statements, transaction screenshots, and photos of receipts. This account, Daniel said, pointing to a page, received transfers matching the times you provided financial assistance, but the expenditures from this account are unrelated to household or child expenses. I scanned the list: online trading platforms, fancy restaurants, hotel bookings, and pricey electronics. My chest constricted as I processed what I was hearing. You're telling me, I asked slowly, that while I was covering their kids' summer camp fees and paying rent, Tom was busy what? Acting like a day trader and enjoying life. Daniel gave a single nod. That's what the records indicate. I leaned back in my chair, struggling to wrap my mind around it. And Amanda just found this out? She had suspected it for some time, but didn't have access to his financial details. The truth came to light when she discovered a bank statement in his desk. I couldn't help but let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Of course. And I was sure she was keeping this from my parents. That's her call, Daniel said cautiously. My job is to inform you so you can protect yourself. She thought it was only fair you knew. I stared down at the folder again. It contained years of emergency calls, countless Venmo transactions with notes for the kids, school fees, rent, and through it all, a portion had been diverted to Tom's personal fund. I felt a wave of anger, betrayal, and foolishness, but above all, relief. Relief because I finally had proof that I wasn't imagining things. Relief that my decision to cut them off hadn't been cruel. It had been necessary. So what does Amanda plan to do? I asked. Daniel's expression changed. She's weighing her options. Separation is on the table. Her main priority is ensuring her children's security. Part of me wanted to root for her. But another part of me couldn't forget how she had silently stood by while I was humiliated at Christmas. Instead of voicing my frustrations, I closed the folder and pushed it back toward him. Tell her I got the message, and tell her she's stronger than she thinks. As I left the office, Boston's winter wind cut right through my coat, but my mind was too full to feel the cold. I knew Tom would find out I had been informed, and when he did, he'd come running with excuses, perhaps even accusations. I wasn't wrong. That night, my phone lit up with his name. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You've been talking to Amanda." Tom snapped, no greeting, just fury. Feeding her lies. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Oh, that's rich. You think I'm the liar here?" He fired back. "She's making a big deal out of nothing." "Nothing?" My voice rose. "You hid money from your wife. Spent it on who knows what while I covered your bills. You think that's nothing?" There was a pause, then a sneer I could hear over the line. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under." "No, Tom," I cut in. "I understand it perfectly. You just don't like that the free ride is over." I ended the call before he could say anything more. My hands were trembling, but for the first time in years, it wasn't guilt. It was relief, knowing the truth. 2 days later, Amanda's name flashed on my screen. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something told me this time wouldn't be the usual guilt trip. I answered. Amanda didn't waste any time. "Did Tom call you?" she asked, her voice tight and cautious. "Yeah, he wasn't happy." There was a pause, then a sigh. I confronted him about the money, the account. He admitted to some of it, but he's still trying to downplay it. I leaned against the counter, staring at the coffee cup in my hands. "Amanda, it's thousands of dollars. Money you thought was going to the kids." "I know," she replied quietly. "I've been making excuses for him for years, Chloe. I didn't want to see it. But after Christmas, after how he treated you." Her voice cracked. "The kids deserve better than this." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to remind her that she had stood by while I was called a loser in front of our parents. Another part of me wanted to protect her because I knew how difficult it was to admit that the life you built was based on someone who was hollow. "What are you going to do?" I finally asked. "I'm not sure yet," she admitted. "I'm talking to Daniel about my options. Separation, maybe more." I took a slow breath. "Whatever you decide, I've got your back. But you need to understand, I can't go back to how things were. I won't be your safety net." "I'm not asking you to," Amanda said. And for the first time, I truly believed her. "I'm just asking you not to give up on me completely." We talked for another 15 minutes. Most of it was awkward small talk, like trying to fix a broken vase with glue. But when we hung up, I realized something had changed. This wasn't Amanda the accuser or Amanda the entitled sister. This was Amanda. She had come to the realization of who her husband really was, and was now grappling with what to do next. The following week passed quietly, almost unnervingly so. There were no texts from Tom, no unexpected visits to my door. I started to wonder if perhaps they had both retreated to lick their wounds. Then one Saturday morning, Amanda texted me. "We need to meet, just the two of us." We decided to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. She looked weary older, with her hair loosely tied back and no makeup on. As soon as we sat down, she said, "I told him I need space." Her voice held no bitterness, just tiredness and a flicker of resolve beneath it. "He didn't take it well, but I can't keep pretending this is okay," she continued. "Do you have a plan?" I asked. "I'm looking for a small place to rent," she replied. "I'm not telling him until I'm ready to move out. The less time he has to interfere, the better." For the first time in months, I felt something other than anger toward her, perhaps respect, maybe even relief. "I mean it, Chloe," Amanda said, holding her coffee cup tightly. "I'm sorry for Christmas, for letting things go this far. You didn't deserve that." I didn't immediately say I forgave her. I wasn't there yet. But I told her, "You're doing the right thing." And for now that was enough. Things moved quickly. On a dull Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "We're leaving today." No explanation, no build-up, just those words. I immediately called her. "What's going on?" I asked. Her voice was urgent, low. "Tom's out of town for a business trip. but I'm pretty sure it's just another excuse to hide away and trade stocks. I've hired a moving van. We're packing up everything we can and leaving before he gets back. Where are you going? I asked. I found a small rental in a town over month to month. Just enough space for me and the kids, she replied. She paused, then added, I don't want him to know where we are until I've sorted things out legally. In the background, I could hear the kids laughing and the sound of boxes being dragged. It hit me that they had no clue how drastically their lives were about to change. What do you need from me? I asked. I hate to ask, Amanda's voice trembled, but I'm short on the deposit and first month's rent. Before she could finish, I interrupted. Say no more. I'll cover it. I was surprised by how easily the words flowed. This wasn't like before, writing checks for endless, fruitless expenses. This time, I was helping her take a step toward independence. By the end of the call, I was already transferring the money. 2 days later, Amanda sent me a picture of her and the kids sitting on the floor of their new home. Pizza boxes in front of them, a small Christmas tree in the corner. Even though it was mid-January. The caption read, We're okay. I wanted to believe it. As expected, Tom didn't take the news well. He called me within hours of finding their house empty, his voice frantic, wild. You did this, he accused. You turned her against me. You've ruined my life. I let him go on, letting his words wash over me. When he finally stopped to take a breath, I calmly responded, maybe if you'd spent less time gambling with her trust and my money, she wouldn't have had to leave. He cursed in response before hanging up. I stared at my phone for a long time, realizing I didn't feel shaken, nor did I feel guilty. I felt free. In the weeks that followed, Amanda began to settle into her new life. She took a part-time job at a local bookstore, enrolled the kids in their new school, and started talking about saving for a car. For the first time in years, I wasn't holding her up. I was simply standing by her, and that made all the difference. A month after Amanda moved out, I drove to visit her. Her little rental was on a quiet street, one where kids rode their bikes without worry. The front porch was filled with potted plants, a sign that she was truly making it her home. When she opened the door, the smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls greeted me. The kids were on the living room floor, doing homework, arguing over crayons, the way siblings do. You look lighter, I told Amanda as I stepped inside. She gave a small, genuine smile. I feel lighter. We sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time in years, our conversation didn't revolve around money. We talked about the kids' new friends, her job at the bookstore, and the little victories of daily life. At one point, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I know I said some terrible things at Christmas. I wish I could take them back. I met her eyes. You can't, I said, but you can make sure the next Christmas is different. She nodded, a determined look in her eyes. That evening, back at my house, I unpacked the gift bags I'd never delivered. Some of the presents had been meant for Amanda's kids, board games, sweaters, books. I set them aside to send to her. The rest I kept, not out of spite but as a reminder. A reminder that generosity without boundaries becomes obligation. A reminder that family isn't an excuse to take without giving. A reminder that I don't have to buy anyone's love. Tom still calls sometimes, but I never answer. I hear he's blaming everyone but himself, spinning stories about how Amanda abandoned him, and how I poisoned her against him. Let him talk. His words no longer matter. Because here's the truth. The day Amanda called me a loser, I believed her for a moment. But now I know better. A loser is someone who refuses to face their own mess and drags others down with them. I walked away from that. So when I think about last Christmas, standing on my parents' porch with those heavy gift bags, I don't feel the sting anymore. I feel relief. Relief that I set the boundary. Relief that Amanda found her way out. Relief that I finally understood the difference between helping and enabling.